Ron Slavin, NFL agent, with us on 365 Sports. There was a story, Todd Archer, who we've known for a long, long time, a story about the journey of Quinn Ewers, UT football quarterback, and how, of course, the weekend went. Ron was quoted many times. I'd known Ron since he represented some players, even back in the day with Leighton Vander Esch. Joins us on 365 Sports. Thanks for your time. What is it like after the draft, whether you have one or multiple players who are prospects for the NFL? Once it ends, do you decompress? What's that like?
It's pretty exhausting just because you go, it's the 3 days of the year that I don't feel like I'm in control. And I feel like I'm pretty organized. I get a lot of good information. I have the relationships I have with teams because I've been doing this now 26 years. But when these teams are picking players, there's not a lot of control. You don't really know, what somebody might be doing behind closed doors. If it's the general manager that's actually making the pick, or the coach or the offensive coordinator wants to grab somebody. So a decompression, yeah, it probably happens for about 48 to 72 hours. Then it's back to work and back to figuring out what I'm going to do and who I'm going to recruit for the following year.
So with the story with Quinn, and there's a lot of great quotes from you, but also the story of Quinn as he was leading up to the draft from the time that he was playing at Texas. I always thought of him, first of all, he has an unbelievable throwing motion. I know he got battered at times. I also know he's tough as hell because he kept coming back. But obviously he didn't, you didn't, and I didn't expect him to fall the way he did. How, in the end, would you say he handled all of it? And then I'm going to get into some of what was going on early in the draft that kind of made you like one of those uh-oh moments.
I mean, Quinn Ewers is probably one of the best human beings on the planet. And this isn't agent talk. This is a guy that I've known now since he was, freshman, sophomore in high school. The things that he endured because he threw a football 88 yards as an eighth grader and became the highest recruit of all time probably isn't fair to any kid. And the world that we live in now, where the internet controls everything and people can say what they want to say and there's no rebuttals anymore, or you can't defend the kid or you can't defend yourself. He took a lot of hits for a lot of misinformation. People said, oh, he left high school early and got paid by Ohio State. Wasn't true. Ohio State gave him no money. NIL wasn't even a thing. It became legal, and within 30 days, people thought Ohio State had a program set up. They didn't. He went there for two reasons. One, he was told, come up here, you can compete for the job right away, and Quinn's a confident kid. But two, the memorabilia deal, which was, it was a big number, and it's life-changing money for a 17-year-old kid. The second part of it is then he goes to Texas, a program that was 5-7, lost to Kansas. People are already saying Sark needed to get fired. And he goes down there and they build that roster around Quinn. If you ask anybody in those recruiting classes that came once Quinn got there, they came because they had a quarterback, and Quinn was the biggest name in all of recruiting for a long time. He was the highest rated guy ever. That isn't his fault, because 247 and on three, and the recruiting places said he was the best quarterback to come out ever. So he endured a lot. He turned a program around again that went 5-7, lost at home to Kansas, and people were calling for Sark after year one. He goes from 8-5 to winning the Big 12, throwing for more yards than anybody in the Big 12 championship game history. And then first year in the SEC, they said they're going to struggle, and he leads them the SEC championship game. And if it wasn't for a few missed kicks, they win that game. Quinn threw for 353 yards, and they said he had a bad game, which, that was just kind of where his career went. It didn't matter what he did. It was never enough. And then he's got the biggest name in the history of football probably behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Arch, but because of the uncles and the grandpa. And I mean, his dad's on TV, and the dad never even played football after he got injured. So the same thing that Quinn kind of had to deal with a little bit in the draft is, people can say that I made that up, or, the word chicken shit, whatever, maybe shouldn't have been used. But to me, it's okay. So there's starting quarterbacks in the NFL that didn't really want to have a name like Quinn behind them, because in Texas, people got real used to hearing Quinn's name. And what Quinn endured with having a Manny behind him, it's stressful for a starter. The head coach has to answer questions every week of, oh, when are you going to put in the backup? The Dr. Pepper commercial that we did, we tried to like make a joke of it. Like, quit talking about the backup. We're starter, we're the starter. We just won the Big 12, and now we're going to try to win the SEC championship and go to a national championship. So there, there definitely were some quarterbacks that went to the GM in the league, in the NFL, and said, if you're going to take a quarterback late, I'd rather not have it be him. And that's not fair to Quinn. That's probably not fair to the general manager to be talked to like that. But that's the world that we live in. Where, and then I know some people are probably like, oh, he wasn't even that good, or his name's not that big. I don't think people understand that the engagement numbers that Quinn Ewers had over the last 3 years are off the charts. The who in college football or the NFL had national commercials with EA Sports, Dr. Pepper, Uber Eats, Hulu. I mean, I could go on, a private jet deal. Like, Quinn didn't go chase those deals. Those deals came to Quinn because of who he was and the engagement numbers and the person that he is. Companies don't choose to work with people that are bad people. And if they do, they fire them real quick because they make mistakes. Quinn's been the perfect person to be the face of a lot of companies over the last 3 years. So when you see somebody like him all the time, there's some guys that, you don't want that guy behind you, because the minute you have a bad game, they're going to ask for him.
So you're telling me that there were quarterbacks in the NFL that you learned had gone to their general manager or whoever and saying that they would rather the team not take Quinn? And is that one of the reasons why he dropped as far as he did?
Well, no, I mean, there's multiple reasons. One, last year there's 6 quarterbacks that went in the first round. So,
Right.
so Cam Ward and Jackson Dart are the 2 guys that go in the first round this year. Jackson Dart, the Giants fell in love with him. Everyone thought that they liked Shador. Obviously, they didn't. They liked Dart more. And then the next 2 teams that were high on Quinn were the Saints and the Seahawks. Well, they were high on Quinn, but they were also high on Tyler Shuck and
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Milroe. So now you get into round 4 to 7, and when you're taking guys 4 to 7, you're taking a backup or a third guy. So when you get to that point in the draft and you're taking a position like the quarterback, I mean, there's only 13 total taken. There's some teams that wanted to be careful with, well, if this guy's going to be our third string guy anyway, it's a lot easier to have an FCS quarterback, or, a guy that's got 2 torn ACLs as our third string quarterback than it is with a guy that has a name like Quinn Ewers.
Ron Slavin is the agent for Quinn Ewers, but he's been an agent in the NFL for quite some time. And in fact, was it when I got to know you when it was Denzel Mims, the wide receiver at Baylor? Is that when we first talked?
Well, yeah, so I had Denzel Mims, James Lynch,
Yep.
Terrell Bernard, Treston
Yep.
Ebner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
had a good little run there at Baylor.
you really did. So what's Quinn's thought process now? He's been drafted. They're about to start, the NFL schedule. I don't even know what it is anymore when it comes to getting to the Miami. Is he as motivated? He's always been motivated. Where is he mentally now after he's been through what was this basically pretty lousy and crappy weekend, although getting drafted is still the end result?
Well, the other part of the story that nobody knows is he got his wisdom teeth out on April 17th and ended up getting a dry socket. So not only is he fallen in the draft, his mouth is throbbing, and he said he hadn't been in that kind of pain besides the torn oblique in his life. So that was going on. But this is, he leaves in Miami on Thursday, May 8th, and he'll be down there until the end of June doing rookie minicamp stuff and OTAs. But this is the first time in Quinn Ewers' life where he's not the number one guy, where the pressure isn't on him. And he just turned 22 years old. So that's pretty crazy to think that for the last 7 years, he's always been called the best guy. And think about the Michigan game this year. After the Michigan game, Mel Kiper, who's the president of the Shador Sanders fan club, and everybody else, there's Google Mel Kiper talking about Quinn Ewers after the Michigan game. He says, Quinn Ewers just solidified himself. He's the number one guy in the draft. He was unbelievable. His pocket presence, all these things, right? Then, unfortunately, he tears his oblique. In the Oklahoma and Georgia game, 99.9% of quarterbacks would have never stepped back on the field with that injury. But Quinn does, because that's what he did in high school. He had a double hernia surgery and came back 4 weeks later and led Southlake to the state championship. Most guys missed 12 to 16 weeks from that surgery. So the thing, Quinn's toughness backfires on him a little bit because he doesn't want to miss games and he doesn't want to let his teammates down. So the oblique injury happens. He doesn't have the greatest game against Oklahoma and Georgia. Unfortunately, the Georgia game, the entire NFL is there. And I think that was another part of it, that they could not shake that game out of their head of what they saw. And then, the last game of the year, Ohio State was
Yep.
was good, wasn't great. And those things happen. And I think because the expectations have always been ridiculous for this kid and probably higher than anybody ever again because of the recruiting status. So this is the first time in his life where he can just go in there and be a football player and not be expected to start day one and not expect to go save a franchise and not expect to, be the guy. So he can, he was at my office today doing Zoom call with the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and he's already putting in the work and starts Thursday, and he got his install today and he's ready to go.
I know that I always thought he was tough as hell, and again did not know a lot of the stories. I mean, even the fact that he's tough as hell to get 4 wisdom teeth pulled before the draft. So he came. There's certain guys. I mean, that's just in their mentality. They don't want to lose their job. But they don't want to not play. That's the main thing. They're like, that's their arena. Had the backup quarterback been Bill Smith, would he have still played, or did that Arch shadow, and Arch never created that himself? He's unbelievable how he's handled everything. Did that force him back, maybe, in your opinion, sooner than he should have come back?
No, the Arch thing was never anything to Quinn. Quinn practiced with the kid and he knew what he was. It was Oklahoma, Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers has been a Texas fan since birth. He knows, how big of a game that is. And then Georgia, first big SEC game at home
Yep.
under
Yep.
the lights. Those are hard games to say I'm going to sit out. This kid was rehabbing 20 hours a day, had, bought himself this machine to sit at home and rehab with, and when he's not at the facility, doing it at home. So, there's a lot of things that people didn't understand or know that Quinn Ewers put himself through to continue to play. And, it's funny when all these tough guy fans are on Twitter and calling them names and saying all these things. None of those guys they probably wouldn't get out of bed and go to work in the morning with the torn oblique. So what this kid did and the toughness that he showed, and then he's finally starting to get healthy, and then he gets a high ankle against Kentucky, this was another thing that they said it's a 6 to 8 week injury. He played 6 days later against A&M. Why? Because he grew up a Texas fan. He knows what that game used to be in the history, Texas and Texas A&M. He wasn't going to miss that game.
You know what I remember about the A&M game, and I don't know if anyone ever brought this up. You mentioned that he had a big scramble. I don't know if it was 17 or 25 yards in that game early, where I was like, my God, he's running on a bad ankle, and he picked up a critical first down in that drive. Was there ever any kind of legitimate discussion about him coming back for one more year in college?
Right. So the way the calendar sets up, it's almost impossible when you're in the college football playoff. But around Thanksgiving, you get a couple phone calls. I have some other quarterbacks I represent in college football schools that are looking for quarterbacks. Reach out, say, hey, are any of these kids going to go in the portal? Quinn obviously would have been the top guy in the portal if he decided to do that. And when I brought it up to Quinn, Quinn said, no, I have no interest in going anywhere else. I want my legacy to be left to Texas.
So
two
no,
days,
yeah,
hold on,
go ahead.
2 days before the Arizona State game, they reach back out. They're like, this can be a significant amount of money. And again, I'll talk about it. They beat Arizona State. Quinn would have had to commit to one of these schools in between Arizona State game and playing Ohio State on the 10th, because at that point the schools are like, look, we'll wait for them, but we can only wait so long because they got to be enrolled in school by the 15th of January. So what are you going to do? Go tell all your teammates, hey, I'm after this, if we don't win this game, I'm heading to Miami, or I'm Notre Dame, or I'm heading to wherever else. Like, it's not doable, but he didn't want to do it anyway. But the way the system is set up, it's not doable. And it's funny because because of his fall in the draft, everyone's like, oh, he lost money, he could have done this, that, the other. He couldn't have. I mean, it just wouldn't have worked. And if he did do it, I mean, can you imagine the backlash he would have got from everybody in the state of Texas? Like, oh, he's already committed to another school, he's not focused on the Ohio State game. This would have been a bad look.
I have to ask you this question, and it's not tongue in cheek, but you mentioned Miami and Notre Dame. Notre Dame was still involved, I think, at the time. You didn't just accidentally mention a couple of programs because, right?
No, I mean, everybody
Yeah,
knew that those schools were looking for a quarterback. There's a
sure.
reason
Okay.
Carson Beck ended up going to Miami.
Yeah, no
I mean, he
question.
was probably their next choice.
All right, Ron, one more question, and thank you, buddy. And the reaction in our portal about this, it's a great story by Todd Archer. And I saw your name. I immediately said, hey, I'm going to reach out to you and talk about the business. What is the business like right now? With the way college, you just mentioned timelines, and I mean, it's a mess. And yet again, players, it's great. The college players are getting paid. But what is it like then for you with clients, whether they're in college or in the NFL? And the fact that I even say that an NFL agent has clients in college is like, for a man my age, it's like, what did I just say? But what's it like right now?
I think it happened too quick. There is no plan, and it's still not well planned out. The rev share issue obviously is still in the courts. There's no There needs to be contracts signed by players. There needs to be some sort of commitment to keep kids in school. I it kind of is reflective of how AAU basketball. I always say AAU basketball ruined the NBA, because you could play on a team in the morning and then in the afternoon you could go play for another team, and there's no continuity anymore. The team part of it is kind of thrown out the door. The same thing is going to happen to college football when they're reshuffling their rosters every year with 20 or 30 kids, and the mid-major schools are going to, I mean, they're going to die because they're they're developing kids, and then the best kids, you're at North Texas or you're at a Northern Illinois or a Miami, Ohio. Those coaches are developing these kids, and the minute one of them is good, they're leaving to, Northern Illinois is going to lose a kid to Wisconsin or Purdue. North Texas is going to lose somebody to, Texas or A&M. I mean, Jeff Traylor, you guys have had him on. I mean, UTSA, their best kid, they're going to lose them. So there has to be more rules and regulations of some sort to control it. I also think the the money side of it, and universities are bringing in freshmen. A 5-star kid is getting 500 to $1,000,000. 4 stars are getting 250 to 500. 3 stars are getting around 100,000 to go. I think that's an issue too, because you might have a 4-year fourth year senior who's put in his time and making 50 grand a year here and there, and then you have this hot shot freshman come in the locker room and they got $800,000 contract they're showing everybody. So it's different because we always talk about rookies in the NFL and all the mistakes they make financially at 22, 23. Now we're talking about 17 and 18 year olds. Do they know that their collective money isn't taxed? And then they got to have the right accountant. There's a lot of unregulated NIL agents who haven't done what I've done for 26 years. They just jumped into this thing as street agents, and they're charging these kids 20%, it's robbery. So I could go on and on. I mean, I could talk to you guys for 10 more hours about this. There's a lot of issues out there. I feel bad for these kids. I feel bad for these kids' parents. I mean, I just talked to a dad the other day that I helped them, do their NIL deal, and the dad already has a sour taste in his mouth about the school that his kid committed to, because before they brought me into it, the dad was doing the negotiating. And no matter how you look at it, when it's your kid, you're going to fight tooth and nail for them, and you're going to feel disrespected. But it's the school is a business, and their negotiator was hired to negotiate deals. So if I tell you your son, we only have 250,000 for you, but you know that they have twice that. Well, what is he? They disrespected us. They did this, this, and that. No, they just want to see if you're going to bite at the 250 offer. I mean, they're trying to save money so they can take the extra 250 and give it to another kid. So it's just it's ugly for a lot of people, and I think it's great the kids are making money and they deserve it. The NCAA has made all this money over the years off the names of these kids' backs. But again, it's so unregulated. There's so many of these guys out there that are taking advantage of kids. I think there's going to be a ton of IRS problems, because I don't think a lot of these kids put the money away to pay their taxes because they don't have the right people around them. They don't have the right accountant. I mean, in the NFL, you have to file a tax return in 9 different states, because every road game you play,
That's
you have
right.
to file a tax return. So these kids are doing the same things. Like, I could go on and on.
Yep.
There's a lot of issues that aren't being addressed. When I represent kids, I approach it. I have a 9th grade son at Southlake. The same way I would do something for Ace, I do for my guys, because if you treat them the way you treat your own kid, you're probably going to make really good decisions for them. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people think that way, and they're just looking for a quick buck, because these NIL agents that don't represent NFL players, they got a short window to make money off these kids. So if they can get them to jump in the portal 3-4 years in a row to make their 20%, they're making these kids move around and jump around, when the reality is, if you stay at the school you committed to and you're getting developed there and you're good enough to continue to make NIL, don't jump around just because you have some 24, 25-year-old street agent telling you to go make an extra 100,000 somewhere else. It doesn't make sense to me.
Last question, and a quick answer too. Thank you for being patient when we lost you a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, legitimately, Miami gets Quinn Ewers. They had Ollie Gordon go in the 6th round, the running back. On a scale of 1 to 10, once he was available and once they took him, what was the reaction in a positive way from the organization that he was available to get him? Because they could have drafted him before, but they got him in round 7.
I don't think they went into the draft thinking they're going to draft a quarterback. And when I started communicating with them in the 5th round, they were like, we can't believe he's still there. So then after they took Ollie Gordon, I was like, you guys got to take this kid, because Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer were at the pro day last year watching Xavier Worthy and JT Sanders work out. And they talked to Quinn the whole time, and Quinn threw the ball that day. And Quinn it's the same reason the Saints were really high on Quinn, because Jeff Ireland, the general manager, was at the pro day. And he texted me afterwards, because I had Byron Murphy, Jonathan Brooks, JT Sanders, and Christian Jones. I had 4 draft picks at Texas. And what Ireland texted me was, the most impressive thing I saw today was your quarterback. So he left an impression at that pro day, and I think McDaniel and Greer saw him sitting there still, and they're like, we can't pass on him.
Yep. Ron,
So my reaction was,
Yep.
it was a gorilla lifted off my shoulders. I felt bad for him, because nobody should have had to go through what he went through. But again, he ended up in the right place, and now he just has to take advantage of it.
Well, you did what you could, man, and thanks for the truth. And also, I know that's your client, and how you feel about him, and from the time you knew him when he was a kid, a young man, as you mentioned. Thanks for the story, the backstory, the insight, and hopefully everything gets cleaned up in the NCAA. But I doubt it. I don't know if they'll ever get that done. Thank you very much, Ron. Have a great rest of the week.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron Slavin, NFL agent for Quinn Ewers, and you heard about the others of who he's represented.